Hi, on behalf of the Monroe County Council, I call this meeting to order for this joint session.
On behalf of the Monroe County Board of Commissioners, I call this meeting to order. I do note for the record that Commissioner Jones and myself are present in the At-U Hill room, and Commissioner Githens is joining us via Teams.
And just for the public record, in the At-U Hill, we've got Councilors Wilt, Iverson, McKim, Crossley, Hawk, Munson, and Decker, which is a full slate.
Oh, good.
I don't know if maybe it's in case someone.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to be here. I know that's a big deal, so I want to thank you for that in advance. With me today, you ready? I think everybody knows me, right? Okay. Everybody recognizes the chief and then the jail commander. But there are two people, really three people I want to introduce to you. The first one is Captain E-Boy. He's been with us for 9 years. He's one of the commanders at the jail. He brings vast experience. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted him to be here. He's going to be pretty much the main presenter to you and talk to you about the topic that we want to present to you this afternoon. The next person that's going to present to you as well, he is Corporal Wilson, and he's been in the house for approximately 9 years as well. He also brings a lot of information, a lot of knowledge with him. Now, these two individuals are members of the transition team, so they have wealth information as well, okay? And one of the things that I really wanted to have them here is because of the wealth information. They've been with the jail before we even got here. So I've been here for about 1.5 years, okay? So certain of the things that I'm learning is really through them, through their eyes, because they could tell us the weakness and the strength of that facility, which I do not know, but they know. And I trust them, and I believe based on their experience and based on what they accomplished so far to this point. So they have my complete confidence. Now, I mentioned the years of experience. It was intentional, but I could tell you with someone old like me and Phil and the others, and in fact, I forgot to mention one person. He does the IT for us, and pretty much the exercise that you guys already heard of, the scenario exercise we're going to put you through, he pretty much designed it. So I really have to thank him for that. But everyone in uniform, we have the assistant commander in the back, Matt Demons. He is assistant jail commander as well. So everyone you see here in uniform right now total about 150 years of law enforcement experience. Now, I say that to say this. There are certain things that we're going to share with you, data and information that obviously it took us time to develop and to understand it. It really is not really fair to you to think that we're going to give all that to you in a short period of time. It just doesn't work that way. But what we did was, and what I had them do is really put all the highlights, all the main things that we really want you to know in the sense of trying to make things a little easier. What I mean by that is this. We all know that we have to build a new jail. We get that, okay? But when we go out into the community and talk to the public, obviously we're getting a lot of questions individually, okay? And sometimes we get them as a group. So the purpose of all of this right now is to really talk to you about, really have a discussion about jail capacity, functional jail capacity, what the difference and how that affects the jail size, okay? Jail capacity, functional jail capacity. And then we'll get into that. Now, I also mentioned that when they get into that, it's going to be a portion that will actually go through an exercise scenario. And believe me, it's something, it's challenging, but it's nothing that cannot be accomplished. But I think it will get you to a certain point that you will see some of the things that they go through day in and day out. Now, one of the things that I want to start with from the ground at this point for us is to talk about what do we have in common? What do we all agree upon? And to me, it's very simple because we've been doing it along right now. All of us, I have not received a pushback, not from this group and or the community, all of us want an actual clean jail. I could say that with confidence. All of us want a safe jail for everyone in that facility. And the main thing that I keep hearing from this group and the community, we also want a very humane facility. No one's pushed back on that. So we all want a clean, safe, and humane jail. So we can start with that. That's what we have in common as a group. And I don't think anyone would disagree with that. So with that being said, Chief, you have anything you want to add?
Just real quickly, part of this day will be information that we're going to push to you. Then part of this day is going to be this interactive exercise. And the whole object of this day is to understand functional jail capacity and that difference that the sheriff talked about. So what you're going to be doing, and there's 3 lucky people sitting in this audience right now that are going to be tasked with being the sheriff, the jail commander, and chief deputy. They're going to have to go to staff a jail that is based upon actual populations and actual different classifications that have happened in the current facility that we're in. So we're going to run you through that exercise, and then we're going to throw some different scenarios at you to show you what happens every day. And I hope by the end of that, we can all kind of understand how functional jail capacity is truly important. And there is a ratio. There's a very distinct ratio between the jail beds, size of the jail, and the functional jail capacity. That's the root of today's session here. So with that, I think we're gonna jump right into this. I think Captain Evoy and Commander Gibbons are gonna lead us off here. You ready?
So we're going to start off by defining bed capacity. The total bed capacity is the total number of rated beds in your facility, and functional capacity is 80% of that total. So if you have 400 total beds, you would have 320 functional beds. This is because it's recognized that once you meet or exceed your functional 80%, your facility can be considered overcrowded or experiencing symptoms of overcrowding. Once you meet or exceed the functional 80%, movement becomes limited. Housing areas originally designed for programming are no longer able to be used for those purposes. Your classification system becomes compromised, meaning you have to house together individuals with different risk assessments.
So what does that mean? Can you hear me well? Yeah, I think so. Hear me now. What does functional capacity mean? Let's look at these tables, for instance. We can sit safely, comfortably, 2 chairs at this table, 3 chairs at that table, 3 chairs at that table, or 2 chairs at that table, right? Essentially, what we've done is saying we have 7 seats we can comfortably sit at this current arrangement, right? But because of space needs, for the amount of people that we have here today, just as if we have those amount of people in the jail, we had to make do. So what we've done is we've exceeded the capacity of these tables. Now, if we were to say, for instance, we've got a chair here that's off, McKim, Ms. Thomas, we have people that aren't at the table, but they're having to make do with the space that they have, right? Now, let's say Mr. Deckard, Ms. Crossley, you guys get into a fight. You can't be next to each other. I know that would never happen. We have to move you, because of the capacity of these tables that we're currently exceeding, we'd have to move 2 other people just to move you away from him. We'd have to move 1 person into your seat and find a seat for someone else because we had to move them out of the other seats. That's capacity. That's the functional capacity that we're talking about. If we had 20 seats, we'd have a lot more capacity to move around and make those decisions based on your classification or your classification. So when we're talking about functional capacity, we're talking about not just the total seats, but how we can utilize the space that we have.
I just want to point out, that's not something we just came up with. That's Indiana Department of Corrections. That comes up with the functional bed capacity compared to total bed capacity.
The 20% between your functional and total capacities are intended for these scenarios that were just described. They're intended for changes in classifications or an unpredicted influx in your populations, things of that nature. We're going to reference 400 beds. It comes from the council's recommendation of a 400 bed limit on a new facility. They reference the Kinray study in that policy statement. It recommends 450 beds. That is a 20-year projection for the average daily population jail growth plus 20% to ensure proper functional capacity. The surveys referenced in that council statement are the Prosecutor Public Defender Bar Association survey. It's a questionnaire sent out by the CJRC, and it ranges in opinions from 100 to 800 beds for a new facility. And then we also have the judicial survey, which their opinions range from 200 to 1,000 beds for a new facility. It was unclear what data was used to support these opinions. So Monroe County does a really good job, an exceptional job of finding alternatives to housing people in jail. Our incarceration rate is approximately 0.214%, which is noticeably lower than the state's average. The Monroe County population between the years 2004 and 2019 increased about 17.3%. The average daily jail population also increased 17.3% between those same years. It shows that there's a direct correlation between the increase in population for the county as well as the increase in the population in the jail. Here we have a graph from the Kinray study. Each individual day's jail population is represented by a circle on this graph. It's a representation of our current jail facility with its functional capacity as the green line and the total capacity of our current facility as the red line. Of the approximate 2,800 days represented on this chart, there might be about less than 30 days where our current facility operated within the functional capacity of our current jail. All the days between the green and red lines are days where we were experiencing overcrowding or overcrowded conditions. Go ahead. In 2016, our pretrial release program started. And as you can see, our population steadily rose in the years that followed, with all these days over here. If we were to draw in a line at 320, representing the functional capacity of a 400-bed jail, we would see that we had an uncountable amount of days over multiple years where we have already experienced jail populations that would exceed that functional capacity of a 400-bed jail. This chart just spans 7 years from 2012 to 2019. So we went from potentially operating within functional means of our current jail to exceeding the functional capacity of a proposed new jail.
And what the previous slide is also saying, as the population grows, so does our incarceration, the numbers themselves. So it's not necessarily that our recidivism rate is increasingly going higher. It's not that the courts are failing in their pretrial release services. It's just a natural fact that as we go, so does the population. Now, with that being said, that first number, when we're talking about how much lower we are than the state average, I think that speaks dividends about how well the judges have done our court system here in Monroe County in ensuring that we stay low. But even with all that effort, we increase our numbers as far as our population goes.
I just want to bring a little bit more attention to this, because if there's anything we tell you here today, this is what we should focus in on. If you look here, Is it any wonder why we have a private settlement agreement here? I think there was 20, like I think Captain DuBois said, there's less than 30 days here, 25 days that we were under the functional capacity of our current facility. All of these days we're at or we're above it. And then you get here and now we're exceeding it. And then when you get here, this is the 400 bed jail. So in other words, I don't know what I have to figure out how to use this thing. Well, it's still not working. Here we go. That ain't working. There it is. So if right here, so let's say that's halfway 2016. If we opened a 400 bed facility, look how many times we're above the functional capacity of that facility going forward. That's not going down, folks. As the population, I think it's remarkable that if your population increases by 17.3%, those two numbers were exactly the same. So let's not lose sight of this particular piece of information as we move forward, because the other part of this slide here is we're continuing in this facility right now. And let's say we start building tomorrow. We're right here. We're right here. All the time. So we cannot continue to function in this area here. Now, this is the data we pulled out of the Kinray study, and it only goes a little past 2019. You had COVID and you had all these others, so the data there is just not there. That's the best we could do. But we'll show you the population numbers, and we would go through this scenario. You're going to see very quickly how difficult it is to operate in this arena. It's really difficult to operate in this arena, and it's almost impossible to operate in this arena. You're going to get a taste of this right here today.
Which, to touch on that real quick, and I'm getting ahead a little bit, this is the reason that you experience a facility that's locked down 23 hours a day. It's the only way you can protect your classification system, which the Indiana Administrative Code says that you must have. So we're completely devoid of this area ever since I've been here, and long before, of that functional operation, that green area being below that line in our current facility.
Kyle, I don't think, explain that when you said that's when you experience lockdowns, when you get up in this area. Why is that the case? I saw some looks of confusion when you said that.
Well, one of the first things that Sheriff Marte, when he brought me on, was, hey, get these people out, make sure they're treated like humans, with respect, with dignity, get them out of the lockdown cells, and give them opportunity to start to assimilate back into public. That was our number one thing. And if you guys remember, that's what we all wanted. We wanted everybody to be up, moving, creating a solid foundation to get their release and allow them to be successful outside. But here's the issue. When you reach this capacity here, and I'm just talking about this purple here and these numbers here, and the issue with that is, once we get there, we cannot ensure that a safe and secure and humane facility. You just can't. And that was part of the issue that the jail operated with prior to our arrival. Now, and the Chief Deputy already mentioned this, we'll get into the numbers because you guys know as well as we do that the COVID changed everything, right? It changed the numbers, it changed the stats. We have no real progression to go off of to present to you today, so we really tried not to guess. So what we've done is, once we get into the simulation, and this is what the Chief Deputy mentioned, we'll take numbers that put us in this area. And it shows us operating well above the functional capacity while we're all trying to figure out what property we're going to buy, where we're going to go, how we're going to do it. And it's taken so much time that when you operate in this area, we're heading towards danger, right? We're heading towards violating an agreement that we have with the ACLU. We're heading towards potential classification issues. If, for instance, Mr. Deckard, Ms. Crossley, if we use that example where we had to separate you, how many times could we do that? If, and this would never be the case, but if Ms. Crossley was the issue, truly, and we kept moving her from side to side, from seat to seat, at some point we'd run out of space, right? And that's the issue, that when you operate well above this green line, which we have not seen for over a decade almost, you operate above that green line, and in this area, especially above that purple, you have to lock down. It's the only way you can keep people safe, unfortunately.
So when you're not able to move individuals, you know, when you're at capacity, when you've reached your total capacity and you have to move 2 people just to move 1, it's very difficult to get in and clean these places. You can try to rely on the people moving out to clean that, but it's our obligation to keep it clean. So if you don't have any spaces and they're all filled and you're going to move somebody, where do you put the people that you need to move while you're going to maintain your sanitation and maintenance of these places? So when you reach that high level above your total capacity, above your functional capacity, it's very difficult to get in and maintain your facility, keep it sanitized.
It's impossible, actually. It's impossible even with what we've done to create space now and to maintain that space. Ms. Munson?
I had a jail population question. Every day I get a pop sheet from Ms. Watson, and I think many of us on the council look at this. Oh, excuse me. And today's is 226, which is below your green line. And it has been in the 220s for much of recent time. So can you comment on this, please?
We actually just had 32 releases. It was, especially with, and this is what we get into, and that's exactly what we're talking about. With functional space, you can allow that, right? You have that fluctuation. The issue is when our technology went down for the county, we had 40 to 60 more people suddenly with zero movement.
Right.
And the problem with that is, and we had to work closely with the judges, with the prosecutor, we had to ensure that the people coming into our facility were still getting their due process. When you were arrested, you have 48 hours to have a probable cause affidavit signed that says that a judge believes that you should be incarcerated pending your pretrial services, right? We get into that area where we can't get any movement. We not only are having trouble housing people, we're having trouble protecting people's civil rights, even prior to incarceration when you get to that level. So yes, we're down today, but we've had 40-something releases in the past 3 days. Now, the reason that your numbers are showing that is because we just, with TSD, got Spillman back.
Yeah.
And it was not reporting any of that information during that time because that is populated from a Spillman stat category. So that's why it shows low throughout that whole time. Salk?
Yes, I would think a lot of that would also, according to the population sheet that we get, you have so many in detox, you have so many females, you have so many males, and you have so many that's only minimum security, and all the way up to so many that has to be in maximum security, and they all have to be separated in certain ways. So I think that's something that we all and the public needs to understand. That's not, you can't really guarantee how many's going to be in maximum security every day or how many's going to be in detox. And yet that's counted as your total population. Correct?
Yes,
Where am I
absolutely
missing
correct.
this?
You're not missing anything. And here's another thing you face. Spillman goes down, so does our classification. So does our ability to properly document people throughout their time in jail. So for instance, I personally, and there is no set rule, you guys remember the photo where people were laying on the floor, sleeping on the cups. I personally do not like, I think it's between 5 or 6, depending on the people, because I put mats in there now. There's not a lot of space for operation, so I don't like any more than 5 or 6. And I don't like them in there for any more than 12, 24 hours. We all want to get them in, get them showered, get them clean, get them moving through the process, get them released. I don't like just sitting around, and we've all talked about that. The problem with that is when the system goes down, our communication goes down with different police agencies, with the judges. We can't move people, we can't classify them as we normally would. So when we're above, that throws functional capacity out the window. We're already above functional. And even if our numbers aren't as high, in those areas, they are increasingly high, and they are unsafe, especially when you're coming into a new facility. That is the most dangerous time for you. That is your most at-risk moment for any new resident that comes in, is that initial time. So even if our numbers are down to 230, 240, 220, if I have 10 people in that small space, I have problems right now making sure I'm still observing their human rights. So classifications, movement, it's all predicated off the space that you have. So you're absolutely right.
That, and just to point out, it took just 7 years for us to go from the populations you mentioned, just 7 years. We went from that to exceeding that functional capacity of a new 400-bed facility. As mentioned, we're all familiar with the ACLU settlement agreement imposed in 2009 because of that. The statement reads that the parties further agree that should Monroe County construct a new jail with a larger capacity, this agreement shall terminate when the inmate population is moved to such a jail.
Now, we're trying to stay on exactly what we've all had time to really look at and research. We have different opinions on some things. That's based on our time and experience doing it. But when we're trying to get all of us on the same page, we're trying to use the same things that we've all had this entire time. And I think that's the best way to do it. We'll find out after today if it is or it isn't. But this is our attempt. We're trying to get on the same page. We're trying to have you guys look through our lens a little bit while we've spent time trying to look through yours. It's a working experience. But I think what Captain Evoy is specifically going at is this is incredibly important from that study. It says it doesn't have to be the biggest jail in the state. It just has to be bigger than you have, right? So we got to talk about, based on projections, based on population growth, we got to talk about what is that number. And we believe it's predicated from the functional capacity. And we'll get into that here shortly.
As mentioned by the commander earlier, that we are dictated by administrative code to have a classification system for our jail so that we separate individuals with different risk assessments. It says that we should go into take considerations from our medical department on people's medical needs, as well as mental health needs.
And we can go in this, we can read the Indiana Administrative Code all the way through today. We're not going to do it. Let's go forward. One. Another one right there. All of that administrative code is saying we must have something, a mechanism in place to safely and properly move people throughout the facility. And it's every jail in the state of Indiana has to abide by that rule. So we have different classifications here. Every facility is different. This is ours. We have a minimum security classification. These are generally nonviolent crimes, like it says. These are low-risk inmates. When we interview them in an initial evaluation, when they come into the facility, we get their medical history, we get their mental health history, if they have that. We give them the options to explore those things. We look at their prior incarceration data. We look at their current charge. There are a litany of options that we have to look at when we're classifying somebody. So if we classify someone as minimum, we are saying that we believe that if I put you around other minimum people, everyone's going to coexist properly. Next, we have medium, and we have maximum. Now, there are three options. There's minimum and maximum, mediums in the middle. It's as easy as to explain as that. When you are a medium classification inmate, we are saying that your charge might be a little bit more, or your known institutional behavior in the facility might be a little bit more. We have documented proof that says that. We have, well, let me just touch on that real quick. Disciplinary. When we have a resident in the facility violate a rule or a policy, not a criminal violation, but a rule or policy violation based on the handbook that we created for each inmate, we have a disciplinary hearing process. It's due process, just as if you would have out here on the street. We have that same process mechanism in place so that we can honor our classification, so it's fair. So, for instance, when somebody comes in and we say, okay, you have 6 write-ups in the past that you have pled to. Of these 6, only 1 was tumultuous conduct, disorderly conduct, fighting. Other than that, you've been pretty good. You're a medium. We're not going to classify you as maximum because you made 1 mistake 6 years ago, right? Because what you don't want to do is take somebody who has a past, who's worked on it and improved themselves, made 1 mistake and throw them right back into their past and expect them to grow from it. It's impossible. And we all know that, and we've all talked about that. But these classifications are important because this puts people in a position to be successful from step 1. That is literally why the sheriff had hope painted in the Sally report. We are trying from the very moment that you arrive to safely guide you through the facility. And that is a visual change in culture that we're trying to initiate. And these classifications, this classification system itself is more than just minimum, medium, or maximum, right? But what's more important than anything else is having the space to properly house these people. Once you start mixing it, as the sheriff, he is taking the liability as the jail commander, as the chief deputy, as the transition team, as council members. We are taking the responsibility and saying, we think that minimum is going to work okay with medium. We think that maximum could work okay with minimum because we just don't have the space. That's the issue that we have.
In our current facility.
In our current facility.
That's what we're doing.
Now, this maximum, this could be the worst of the worst, or just people that continuously not following policy, not following the rule. The reason that we have maximum people in our facility is because essentially what we've honestly said, not only are they a security risk to the facility or to the staff, that may be the case, but it could just mean you're not safe for the minimum security people. You're just not safe. How you carry yourself, how you conduct your business is not going to be good for the people around you, is what we're saying.
Generally, our maximum security inmates are going to have charges of serious violent felonies as dictated by the Indiana Criminal Code.
Now, getting into an individual's housing, we have to look at administrative classification. Typically, these are people who we believe are not safe in the facility and general population. Minimum, medium, and maximum are our general population blocks currently. Even moving forward, that's the classification system that we would use. The issue is when we look at administrative classification, I could say, Captain Evoy, if you're not operating in the general population of minimum, medium, maximum, I can't just say figure it out. I have to put him in a position to feel safe and to be successful in the facility. So I have to change his classification. So he may be a minimum, but I say, you know what, I understand you're at risk. He may not even feel safe to say anything about it. We have to watch for these things. And I have to change his classification, and it's administrative. It's something that we've decided to do. Now, that is still reviewed every 5 days. The state requires that we do it every 7, we do it every 5, because I believe that sometimes things happen before a week happens. You know, these people are checked every single day by our social workers and by our jail staff. But no matter what, within 5 days, we look to see if you still meet that need that we feel that you had at the time. We have disciplinary classification, protected custody, and a sex offender classification. Now, disciplinary classification is something we just talked about. These are people that have, and at the maximum 30 days, reclassification and change in their housing. Could be lockdown, could be commissary restriction. It could be a litany of things. It just consequences for your actions, right?
Indiana state standards also dictate that we have a disciplinary process in place for individuals who might violate the rules of the facility and the different sanctions that are applicable.
Now, protective custody is sometimes different than administrative classification. Protected custody is, same instance, Captain Eboy comes to me and says, I'm not safe here. I need to be housed somewhere else. We would change his housing based on his need and still check in every 5 days with him. Sex offender classification. This is a sensitive subject for all jails, a sensitive classification and how you care for it, right? These individuals, based on Smith versus Wade, a court ruling, you are at risk of deliberate indifference if you ignore the inherent risk of their charges or criminal history. We have an entire block now that's made up of only sex offenders because that is the only place that they are safe in the facility. They cannot be in general population. The standard person literally will target these people because of their charge. So when you run out of space for these individuals, for instance, right now, we have 12 beds in this area. We have 14 sex offenders, which means what? I've got 2 people on the temporary housing boats. Now, we're working on getting that changed, and it's probably changed right now. We get somebody classified to administrative classification, and we move them throughout the facility based on the need and the risk assessment, right?
But if we didn't have a dorm or a housing area assigned for these people specifically, the times out of the rooms would be limited. They would be in a block with the protective custody individuals or possibly the disciplinary individuals. So if they're all sharing the same housing unit, then that means the space out, that means the time out of their rooms is going to be limited. Yes.
How would other inmates know what people are charged with? Do you inform them as they go in?
We do not inform them of that.
No, but
our residents have
everybody has access to media. Everyone has access to a kiosk. Everyone, I promise, and this is what happens, and I guess I should have covered that a little bit better. When an individual comes into the facility, you have everyone finding out who that is, how they can exploit that person, take advantage of that person. Can that person bring in contraband or any prohibited items? Every person has a role inside of a jail facility. And every inmate knows about that person and who they are or what they're doing and how they're moving. So when we have those classifications, for instance, if I was trying to hide that I was a sex offender and I was in a block somehow in general population, I just wouldn't tell people. I wouldn't tell people. I would try to make up, I got disorderly conduct. I was arrested for disorderly conduct. Well, if the 3 days pass and you haven't left because you're usually released by now, like, what are you really here for? You're like, well, I hit an officer too. I got an extra 6 months on it. They'll figure it out very quick. The people that are inside confined in this facility, they have access to everything out here. And that's by design. We want them to have access to their attorneys, to their families, to pop culture items, as silly as that may seem. We want them to be able to step back into society and step right into where everybody else is too, and not have to catch back up, if that answered it.
These individuals have contact with their families or friends, and it's very easy to ask them, and they're familiar with my case, and they're able to look up each individual's because it's public information essentially on what somebody's going to be charged with.
Yes.
The special considerations make sense to me so far. I know you're still going through them. Right before that, you had the administrative.
There was protected custody, administrative classification.
Administrative classification.
Okay.
Are you telling me that the things you've talked about since this one are components of administrative classification? I guess I don't understand if this is different.
These are all in of themselves different classifications that we have to take into consideration when moving people through the facility. So, like for instance, administrative classification is very similar to protective custody. The only difference is you might say, hey, I need help, or you may not say, hey, I need help. I could see that you need help, and without you saying that, I might be, okay, I am putting this person in administrative classification.
Sounds like a catch-all when you see something that needs to change. I'm trying to better understand.
That's why there's a 5-day review. So for instance, let's say I didn't think you needed help. I thought they needed help. And because of the way that you carry yourself and how dangerous you are, I may have to put you in administrative classification. You don't want protected custody. You don't want any other classification. But I'll move you there because that is the only safe place for everyone else in the facility, is to have you under that restrictive housing. That's the difference.
Consider this. These guys are doing their rounds and they notice a particular resident. And every time they go in there, he's sitting in his cell. He's all alone. He never engages with the folks in his particular block. He cries a lot. People come up and say, "Hey, he walks around at night, or he is constantly telling me he's afraid," and that will happen. They'll say, "This inmate, my buddy here, he's afraid. He tells me he's afraid." But in that environment, they may not come to you and tell you that. So it's up to us to look and go, "Hey, this person may be getting victimized in here, or is of such a in such a mental state that he could be victimized. We've got to take action because of what we're observing." That's administrative classification. So you pull that person out of there and you put him where he's protected, and then you go back every 5 days to see, hey, is he still in that dark place? So this one is us intervening when we think a person may fall prey to being victimized, battered, name the issue that could happen in a jail. Protective custody is when they come to you and ask, say, "Hey, I'm afraid." Does that help?
That does help. Thank
Okay.
And that happens. This happens more often than you might think in Chief Deputy's example, because when you come into the jail, you have to carry yourself a certain way, act a certain way, talk a certain way, move a certain way. If I were to come into any new jail setting as an inmate and I voiced that I was afraid or that I had concern, I would immediately be targeted. I would immediately be taken advantage of. The shirt, the socks, the underwear, the things that we give each person now upon their arrival, yeah, we're taking that. You're not going to stop us from taking it. Now you have nothing. And unless we can come around and say, yeah, I got to get you out of here. Get them in a place, get social workers talking to them more, make sure they're getting their food and it's not getting taken when we're not watching. That's what that's for.
We have conflicts, disagreements, or history of conflicts between individuals. These may arise while you're inside the facility. They may be problems you bring into the facility because you may interact with a lot of the same individuals. So if you're in the same housing unit and that happens and that develops, we have to remove you from there and perhaps find you a different housing unit. So our general population blocks where people are out in the day room quite frequently, if we only have one of those blocks with that classification and their conflict develops, well, we have to pull them out, and where would the housing be for them after that? And gender is also one of the considerations when determining an individual's housing. Medical care, an individual might need to be on medical observation, so we have a room for them where they'd be on direct camera observation to observe their medical needs and make sure they're not deteriorating from whatever medical ailment they may have. They might have to be frequently visited by our medical staff, so having them in close proximity to the exam room or medical staff would be more beneficial than having them transported around the facility.
Another reason for medical housing, medical classification, is if we've got individuals that come into our facility, they can't use their legs, they have to have a wheelchair, or that they have limited use of their legs and they have to have a walking cane, or they have, we have a lot of people, and more than I've ever seen before, that have apnea, and they have to have breathing machines throughout the facility. You can't plug that into just some block and hope that nothing happens to it. You have to have space for these individuals, and a lot of these individuals, and we'll get into a couple of examples here in a minute, require extensive observation where it's continuous throughout their stay in the facility. And it's not like we can say, "Hey, Judge, all these other ones are good, I can't house this person." They're going to say, "Yeah, you can't figure it out, that's literally your job." So when you have medical and mental health considerations, What we're saying as a facility is we will do everything that we can to put you in a position to feel safe and feel comfortable and progress you through your treatment. When these things, especially when we get into liability that we have as a county, get interrupted, we are in deep, deep water. And it's very difficult to manage when you don't have that functional space to properly provide care for these people.
Is there a ratio of beds that you need to set aside for these special considerations? Like 20% of beds, 10% of beds?
I think that's a conversation we need to have moving forward. I think when we're talking about the jail build and we're working through the transition team, that's what that is for. We figure out, we start looking at population progression. We start looking at needs as a community. We start looking at exactly what programs can we work into the facility to get people treatment throughout their stay. That's going to directly impact the number that we get, but the functional space, the availability of that space is going to allow us to properly move people while they're in our care.
So I think the medical housing is kind of broken down into two separate ones. You have your individual direct observation with a camera, those rooms, and then you can also have a dorm. The ones that are going to go into the direct observation with a camera are going to be people who need a bit more attention. You know, they might be experiencing some psychosis when they first come into the facility, or they've developed some kind of ailment that we need to make sure they're not going to deteriorate, or that, you know, we're giving them the proper medications and they are taking them as prescribed. And then the medical dorm itself, aside from that, might be people who have more chronic long-term illnesses that need addressed.
In medical specifically, and we do have a mental health crisis issue, as everybody in the nation does. But medical specifically, which our ACH program provides for both of these are the things that we're looking at when we're trying to maintain that safety. When you have inmates that are trying to not get into the simulation yet, but when we're talking about program space, we're not just talking about a big open room. We're talking about space that is for these specific individuals, because, and I didn't check since our numbers have come online, 86% of our population have medical issues documented. The last we checked, don't fact check me on that. I know you will. But when we have that vast amount of individuals that require our medical attention, and we can't put them in the proper medical housing, we have to get into the blocks where these people are and make sure that they're still receiving care. And that requires hours of the day. That's as line staff, as captains, sergeants, corporals, corrections officers, we are required daily to execute certain duties throughout the day, every single day, without fail. Not even one time can you fail these things. But when I have to have my captain step away from all of his duties and start looking in the block, like, hey, will you go check on John Smith, please? I need another update on him. And that happens 86% of each day, right? And it's incredibly difficult to manage when I don't have an area to put these people directly where I can house them. And we talk about close proximity when we're talking about the new build and all these things, and all the special words and terms we learn in Pony. It's all well and good, but this is what we have right now. And these are the considerations to take into account when we're talking about functional availability.
To Counselor Iverson's question on the mental health, I think we've given this stat before. We run anywhere between 17 and 22% pretty consistently of individuals in our facility that our mental health professionals have classified as having severe mental illness. So if you just take that into context, that's just the mental health side. You throw the medical side on it, I'd say it's probably pretty close to that. So, you know, we're looking at, you know, upwards of 40% of the population that splits between those two classifications, those two considerations. So when we go to building this facility and designing this facility, we have to pay very, very close attention to this.
And those numbers fluctuate. There is a consistent percentage of that, but individuals can fluctuate, and assignments can be adjusted and move to different areas at times. These are examples of current residents we have in our facility that require special considerations for their housing. This individual is maximum security. His current charge level 1, the highest level felony of child molesting, which is a serious violent felony. He has co-defendants and possible conflicts in the housing unit we've designated for our sex offenders. Chronic health conditions, they weren't taking care of themselves properly necessarily, or weren't able to get on top of with an infection, and it required amputation.
So what does this mean? This is what this means. At the very lowest level, he's a maximum security inmate. I have one block for those people. He's a sex offender. He cannot be in the one block that I have. So now he has to go into the sex offender dorm. His current charge is with a co-defendant. That means 2 people committed the same crime, and they cannot be with each other prior to the trial. They have to be separated. And on top of that, not only is a co-defendant, but they have had physical altercations in the past. He cannot now be housed in maximum. He can't be housed in the sex offender dorm. And he has, on top of it all, chronic health conditions that limit his mobility. So the cane, he just has a cane at the time, but this condition here specifically, he came in with MRSA. And when you have these inmates, and we have, unfortunately, an unhoused population in this community, these people are exposed to these things daily, and they come into our facility daily. So when we're trying to care for these individuals and bring them through our facility, we have to have strong consideration to just this outside of every one of those classification needs. So if you're going to house this person, you're going to have a difficulty finding that position. And we're going to get into that here shortly, but let's do this real quick, get into the simulation here in a second. Mr. Iverson, yes. You're the sheriff. Congratulations.
All right.
I don't know if that's something you want. Ms. Wiltz, you are the jail commander. We are kin. We are a team. You are the chief deputy. I like you better than I like Phil, so that works out. I love Phil. I'm just kidding, everybody. So, you 3 individually focus on, because we have 3 more examples. Think about how you're going to start putting them in the facility when we get to that point. These type of people when we get the numbers in place. Next one.
So this is a female we currently have in custody, maximum security, has a great deal of institutional misconduct, broken TVs, broken phones, breaks a lot of county property. Found not competent to stand trial. That's not our determination, but that's one that we can be researched. And additional considerations in terms of gender. So it makes it, additional housing units sometimes aren't, or need to be developed. They may not always go where we would normally house these other people, our general population.
The issue is, with them being found not competent to stand trial, we still have to hold them until a facility can take them to try to get them competent. So in the meantime, we have to find a place where they're safe and they're not putting themselves at risk or anybody else at risk.
Another female resident, medium security, has had multiple conflicts while in custody. Great deal of institutional behavior, fighting with others and staff, previous attempts at self-harm, and has documented infectious diseases. Special considerations, again, for housing these individuals. This gentleman is in our mental health dorm, maximum security. He's a sex offender, but he also has mental health needs, so he can't really be housed with the other individuals we have designated to go into the sex offender dorm because his mental health needs outweigh that need.
Let me speak on this guy a little bit. This was my very first resident interaction upon my arrival in Monroe County. 6'7", physically imposing individual who allegedly took advantage of people inside of parking garages, and rape is his charge. Now, at 6'3", 280, I feel pretty comfortable. Just my presence alone should help any physical situation, and it usually does. I walked into, I think it was 6 of my officers trying to talk to the guy back into his cell. He's trying to fight him, being physical. They're just asking him to step back in. I step up, and I actually stepped around the corner. I didn't know who I was dealing with. Talking like, hey, man. And I'm like, oh, hey, man, how are you? It changed everything. But with individuals like this, we are trained as a staff to deal with people of altered mindsets, of people that are withdrawing, people experiencing mental health issues, people that are physical in nature. All of these things, we're experienced, we're trained, we're meant to handle those situations. This person can't be with somebody fresh off the street that was arrested for the first time in their life, have no idea what jail is and what it's like, and be exposed to this person. And that's why these classifications matter. We can't just have this individual walking around. Can't happen. It's not safe for literally anyone. And sometimes, without getting too far into it, this is why we don't put the names on it, it's not even safe for himself. So when we're talking about these individuals and we're talking about the availability to classify these people properly, we're not talking about just making sure we have enough beds for what we think is going to happen. We have to plan for what could happen. Now, we're into the simulation portion, Sheriff. You make all decisions. You're super handsome. You do everything right. You can't make any mistake. Oh,
Keep going.
I was talking about Mr. Iverson. He's going to get this set up, but here's what we're going to do. And I'll explain. Let me see that real quick so I'll stand from the screen. I'll explain this as we get into it here. He'll get it sized up to where we can use it and everybody can see it. Can you guys see it okay? Okay. This build here to your left, we have block housing here. We have detox housing here. This portion of this facility, or this graph here, is built on what we built the facility for. So when you asked earlier, how many mental health beds should we have? How many? That's what this is to the left. This is what we've said as a community that we believe we're going to need in this new facility. This is built specifically off the DLZ's recommendation of what a 400-bed facility would look like. Okay? Now, we have 5 padded cells. We have 8 medical cells, and you guys can kind of see right here what the capacity for each one of these cells is.
Yeah.
This is what's open. There's a little legend here. You can see this green color for reference. Right now, there's 0 people in these one-person cells, so it shows that it's green, it's open. As we get through, it'll progress through orange, yellow, orange into red. Red is full. Now, for instance, this is a day in our facility where we had 230 people, which Ms. Munson, you mentioned earlier. We had, on this day, 58 minimum male inmates. Now, drop the box down for class up here. This facility was built to house 24, this is an open dorm area, essentially. You guys have been through, you guys understand what we're talking about here. You have 58 individuals. If we go, let's just type that in, minimum male 24. That has 0 beds left in that for that capacity in A block, and you still have 34 remaining. Minimum male, 34. You guys kind of see how you're just plugging in numbers. I don't have to explain that to you guys, but here's what is important. For instance, this cell here, or any one of these cells, has a drop-down box. Every one of these, the sex has a drop-down box. Okay? On this day, we had either male or females in our facility that they identified as. Okay? So it's a little bit easier when you're just dealing with 2 sexes rather than a multitude, and as far as classification goes. But for instance, this bed here, drop the box down, you could decide, you know what? I need that to be the disciplinary cell. Disciplinary, and there's one female. Plug it, it's 0 now, one disciplinary female, but the yellow tells you you're utilizing that space for something other than what it was intended for. So you can kind of see where it starts coming together. Here's what I need. You guys could use the pointer if you'd like, Sheriff. You know everything, at least ours does. If,
Jeez. That's what I do.
oh my goodness. Trooper, former trooper. So, when you're plugging information, Jail Commander, he's entrusting you to make the decisions. Now, he's brought you in, and he's brought the Chief Deputy in to make these decisions as a team. You are better together than you are by yourselves. So there are times where you might get an inmate in at 2 a.m. where you have to call the Chief Deputy or Sheriff and say, hey, we got a problem here. We got a guy that comes in, we have no housing available. What are we gonna do? And they're gonna tell me, your job. How about you do your job? That's what we hired you for. And I'm like, all right, Captain, what are we gonna do? Like, so you're gonna run into some problems here. Just work through them together. You can start plugging them wherever you want. Ruiz will put the numbers in for you. Just let them know where you want to put the individuals. And Jail Commander, don't let them make all the decisions. You're smarter than them and you know it.
You have a heavy load. Trust me.
And you don't have to start with that first one. That was just an example. If you want to get rid of it, you can.
How much time do we have for this exercise?
30 seconds.
How much time do you have?
So we've got 3 of these to go through, so we need
3 of these to go through.
We
That's
got
all.
3.
Okay.
So
And to keep this in consideration too, you get seconds to make the right decision for an individual when they're in the facility. We're not simulating that here.
And you don't get them all at once like this either.
When I walked in, I got this. My first day, I said, oh, we're undoing all this,
Right.
and we're doing this.
So it seems to me that the medical, mental health, disciplinary, the protective custody stuff needs to be addressed first.
The most serious first. I agree. Yeah.
You're gonna let the Chief Deputy make all the decisions?
I'm listening
Yes.
and learning.
You're supposed to know everything.
So what is the most serious? Should we start with our 11 sex offenders, or should we start with the 10 protective custody, the 7 disciplinary, what should we start with?
Listen, Sheriff, the Chief Deputy already said they want to focus on mental health.
I said medical, mental health,
Yeah.
disciplinary. I would do those first. For sure, medical has to be a medical wing. Okay, you're not going to treat them outside the medical wing, right?
Mhm.
Well, that's a question though.
There you go. Good question.
Because single medical,
correct.
do these folks need to be in that single? I'm picturing.
You just have 5 males and where we at? 1 female. So look at it more as just the housing for now, not necessarily on the need themselves. We took this data specifically from a day in our history here, and people that were classified as mental health, we put a number, and that's it.
So you populated the first medical. Could you continue populating the 5 and the 1?
If that helps you know. There's no specific.
And we can
Personal
move them
attachment.
once we set it here.
You can move
We're
them
gonna have
anywhere
to
you
keep-
want,
we're
but
gonna
you only
to
have
keep it
one or the other option.
adapting and addressing. Yeah.
The 1 female, yeah.
We're almost at capacity for our medical block.
Okay. And we see there's 0 remaining for medical now.
Actually, 2.
So we've got 5 padded cells. And that's for our,
Sometimes mental health,
You've got
sometimes
mental health-
disciplinary.
You've got mental health wings here. You've got 22 and 12 in mental health, disciplinary, protective custody, right? You've got those
Mhm.
blocks. So,
right here.
Yeah.
Now you're limited to what the jail was built for, not for what you have all the time.
So do we sort the disciplinary into disciplinary and protective custody into protective custody? That seems maybe like the next step.
Let's do it.
Okay, so how would you like us to refer to you? Okay, all right. We've got 6 male, 1 female for disciplinary.
Now,
And
one
we-
thing I want to point out, since you just put your female in there, you can't put anybody else in there unless it's a disciplinary female. So now there's 9 beds open in that block that we can't use.
Sure.
So it'd be better to move it to the 6. No?
Why not move it with males?
What's the difference between disciplinary and protective custody in terms of the design of the space?
Disciplinary, you have your options are limited. General population has more access to things. Like for instance, your protected custody is still going to have everything everyone else has: TVs, free access to kiosks, free access to all the things. Disciplinary does not.
Got
They
it.
don't have access, depending on their hearing, to certain commissary items, to the microwave, to the television. It just depends.
So can we populate the protected custody now? Put the 9 males right here and the 1 female right there.
We just wasted some more beds, quite a bit. Okay.
Can we slot people in and then come back and fix?
Yeah.
That's the whole point of functional, Kate, is that you're gonna have, right, you're gonna have
It's called
people
shells.
who are, right? Is that,
That'd be good.
I think that's why we're doing
So-
this exercise, I imagine.
Detox.
That's medical.
Is it?
That's a good question.
You've got places for detox up there.
Oh, I see, detox,
Okay.
there we go, 1 and 2
Mhm.
door
No, I
with
didn't see
beds,
that.
there we go,
Okay, yeah.
18 and 7. There you go.
There were no females for detox. Sex offender, we have 11 individuals.
We put them in a block together?
We put them in a block with cells
Yeah.
down here, or there, yeah, whatever. So now we've housed all of these individuals. Now we're up to our mental health individuals.
We did that.
No, because there's still remaining 27 and 4 in the red here.
Oh, I thought we put them in.
So we have,
Okay.
And that's where we have the problem. We have 22 and 12, and we've got 27 and 4.
right,
Okay. Well, so we can put them,
We have
can
5
we add
more
them to the
males to
single
house.
medical and single padded?
down here.
Yeah, fill those in.
We've got 5 to house.
We'll put 5 of them in a block then.
Up here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, let's hold off on those and then do the other general pop, and then come back and see where we can fit them in. Maybe.
You're doing great, Chief. Keep it up.
So
Do not let her win. We have a side bet going right now.
No, we're working together. This is not. a
yeah, there's no
competition.
competition.
It never is. Never is competition.
No,
Ever.
we're not. Okay, so we did minimum male, what you did. So now we need,
There's still 34 minimum males and 11 minimum females.
oh, just throw them all together.
That's what we've had to do.
Okay, Joe Commander, you're fired.
Dang it.
So can we populate the next cell for the rest of the minimum, or 24 of the minimum males, and another cell block for the 11 minimum female, please? And then the next cell block is for the remaining 10 minimum males.
I would put the for now, you could put the trustees together, because that's below minimum, right?
What does trustee mean?
Inmate worker. It's inmate worker.
So now,
We've got the max
and the
and
medium.
the medium.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna All right, so let's populate the medium males, it's 11. Medium female, which is 4.
But I think we're gonna need to put the max female with the medium female. Since there's 5 total, that's a whole block.
Field Commander, how do you feel about that?
Say that again.
Putting the medium and the max females together because there's 5 of them. But you're already taking a whole block of 24.
Be very
for
careful
5.
putting max inmates in with
Why don't we
anybody.
just put the max female down in a padded cell?
And I would imagine that the block with cells has different units, and so you're gonna be able to put a maximum in 1 unit.
We'll get to that. Yep, you're right.
So I mean, this is really kind of a tough one to do this way. But
So you're gonna put some mediums in with some maxes, is that what I'm hearing?
That's what they were gonna do. I don't know that they're gonna do that now.
The jail commander is pushing back on that.
I don't think that's such a
you have
great
different
plan.
units. So
Correct.
you would have an individual cell and then maybe.
But we're not
one
given
style.
that
Well,
information.
let me add to that. If you did that, you have to make sure they don't have contact. So for how many max did you have?
Well, she was gonna put
one
them on
minute
padded
and 50.
cells, so I mean, that's,
Well,
yeah, you know.
You're
I
right.
get it.
That one person, every time they go out,
Yeah.
everyone else has to lock
Yeah.
down.
I get it.
So what actually happens is everybody's looking at that window at that one person the whole time they're out. They're like lions watching this person. And they're waiting for their chance because they're mad, real mad, that they have to be locked down now because that person's out. And that's what happens at our facility.
And the
Every
problem
facility.
is we've got maximum males that total more than 2 cell blocks. So
Yeah.
we're already gonna have difficulty.
And keep in mind, guys, and I'm jumping the gun a little bit,
I say we just legalize pot.
you're trying to use our population from a day that we've had
Okay.
for a 400 bed facility. We have a 294 bed.
Back up on that, Kyle. Listen, you're putting a population that has occurred in our facility in a 400 bed jail right now. That's what you're doing. Keep that in mind.
All right, so
But the blocks are not,
They're not- It's not a 400
This is
bed
actually-
jail that's designed to be maximized.
These are parameters
DLZ designed that.
recommended
They
by
gave us the floor
DLZ.
plan.
These
Yeah.
are the parameters recommended by DLZ.
And this is actually
So-
would be kind of great to have, to be honest.
So,
There's a lot
so
more
these,
options
yeah,
than
these
we
cell
have.
blocks, so
Yeah, jump in there.
you could have 12 rooms with 2 bunks. Or you could have, I mean, if you want to have just a big open dorm, but
can we just, let's just finish this
The
up.
max
yeah, so
guys
put
in
the
there.
get the maxes in males into blocks.
We've got 50 of those, so they need 3.
Yeah, and now you're still gonna have 2 left. So you've got 2 cell blocks left and 5, 1, and 2 that have to be placed somewhere. So
We've
where
got
do
all
they go?
these things down here that are singles.
Right,
Let's put them in there.
so you could do the mental health.
The 5 mental health, they can
And then
either
we
be in
can
padded
rotate
or
them
single
around, so
metal.
it's like a vacation.
medical.
Take a little day and padded and then go back.
So again, these are individual rooms that are not inside of a cell block area. So they don't have, the access to TV. They're not socializing with other individuals. You have to rely on correctional staff to get them out for their showers and their phone calls.
These last 5 males with mental health classification are going to need those circumstances. I just talked to the social workers.
Yeah.
Right, so,
Well, because we
Hold on,
still have
hold
a max
Let him
female
finish.
and 5, and we have 2 max males, but we also have 2 max males.
Okay.
So we've got
So we've got
2
3.
cell blocks, and we've got 2
a
medical
2 and a
left.
1.
And we've got 3 individuals to fill.
So we just put those.
Oh, yes, you're correct. We still have a detox dorm.
So one of the blocks becomes max female, the other one becomes max male. And you've just
Joe Commander, are you okay with that?
wasted a whole cell block on 2 people.
I probably would split it.
Well, wouldn't you
More like
probably,
15, 15.
exactly.
Yeah, I
Wouldn't
mean, yeah, you would
maxing
split.
out.
24 and 11,
Right.
and
You would split
Let's
the
see the
max males up.
Let him finish first.
No, they've got them all in.
Yeah, so we would split the max males up into something a little less lopsided.
Up here?
than this.
Exactly.
Right.
You did an outstanding job.
I did an outstanding job.
I think you did
Oh, this
better
means
job.
to be recorded.
All right, so Here we've got, oh, change it. Okay, well, you've got a -1. Yeah, good job. Now, here's the issues that we're facing here, just off what we have.
I like your proposal.
These 5 people are now in padded cells, right? Because of the space that you have, these 5 people are no longer in programs. They're no longer getting social worker interaction in group therapy, trying to get them back to the general population. Because when somebody comes out of mental health, they're not just mental health throughout. We're trying to get them assimilated back to the general pop. We're working daily with our social workers, with the staff, with our programs available. We're trying to ultimately, I want my mental health dorm empty. That means I have 230 healthy individuals. Now I don't have to worry about that. I can just worry about, okay, now let's get you a job. Now let's put you in a position to do this when you get out. We have people in place to do these things for them once they get there. That option here is gone because of what we had to do. Because when you isolate any one of these people for an hour, for 2 hours, for 3 days, for 6 days, it changes everything. Good.
But wouldn't you put the 5 into the padded cells who are awaiting transport out to a treatment facility somewhere else?
What do you mean by that?
For example, you have incarcerated people who have mental health issues who you are trying to bring back into the general population,
Right.
but you also have folks who are not capable of standing trial and they're awaiting transport, judge's order and transport somewhere else. That's who would go into that.
And sometimes it is that.
Right.
And sometimes it is that. But we don't have these filled every single day. We have it open when
Right.
we need it. And
Right.
they fluctuate. They're in, they're out, one person's back. You have to put these people, so essentially what's happening here is just for males alone. You have a mental health home with 22 individuals. And we talked about not knowing each individual, so we can't say essentially, because what it looks like right off the top is it looks like you said, I care more about these 22 individuals' mental health than these 5.
Yeah.
That's not exactly what happened here, and I want to be clear on that. We were plugging in numbers based on the numbers themselves and not the people and their needs. But just so you know, needs, numbers, functional capacity, the public that doesn't know about what we do and how we do it, they don't care about any of that. All they see is 5 people locked down in one cell, and that's just what it looks like. That's the optic, right? That's not necessarily what it is. But that's why we have to come out as law enforcement and explain these things sometimes. We are trying to get ahead of it and say, hey, this is what actually happened. I have this individual where I'm going to be able to say, that person's actually just waiting transport to a facility. Now, people in and out of facility for mental health transport does not happen often. There's no beds in the entire state. It's very difficult.
So how long are those people going to be sitting there?
It just depends. Now, do you take these 5 and just switch out 5 every once in a while? Do you manage it? Yeah, you can try. Yeah, you have ways to mitigate that, but you are limited on functional capacity because of the numbers. And this is 230, right? So when we come up here, for instance, we have, where do you have? We've got our medical female here. Protective custody. We have 13 open, 13 open, 14 open, 13 open, 12 open, 10, and we can go all the way down, right? And here's what it looks like. This is what the optic is. Look at all these open cells you have. Why do you need more space? Why do you need more bunks? You have all this open space. But that's not what it is in all actuality. That's not functional space. Those are open cells because we don't have those filled. Because in a day, I could add 5 more inmate worker trustees and hit that capacity. In a day, I can add 12 more max, literally in an evening. That's how fasting. That's why when we come in front of you guys, we try to say, in the last 48 hours, we have X amount of people come in, X amount of people leave. That's what's feeding into that number. And it's easy to think like, okay, yeah, they're getting people in and out because that's what it looks like.
Or if you have somebody that is an immediate threat to themselves, somebody who might be actively suicidal, like they will use anything they have to harm themselves.
Where do you put them now?
Where are you going to put one of those 5 people? Which one of these 5 people are you going to now determine don't need to be in a mental health in the mental health dorm, don't need to be in that room?
So,
now that you have.
Question about that.
Yep.
Well, I mean, could you then move a mental health person, that sounds terrible, to a medical slot,
yep, you could.
and then put the person you're more concerned about
And that
in terms
happens
of,
every single
and
day.
then put them there.
Yep.
And I have another question.
Yep.
When
Oh, you're good. Go ahead.
you mentioned that this was something that has been proposed as a layout or a distribution of cell types.
Yes, we asked DLZ for parameters on, a 400 bed facility on what that might look like. They gave us what it was for a 200 bed facility and we doubled it. So, I mean, this has been designed within the parameters of what we need from our standard or historical needs from our population to try and design on how we would sort them out to fairly house each individual according to their needs.
Classification.
For the classifications, for protective custody, for disciplinary, for mental health.
So as a follow-up, then why would you not maybe make blocks that are smaller and have more of them?
Because if you did that, which that is a great idea, I wish we could do that. We'd have a facility that's 2 miles wide with all different space for each person, where we couldn't house people together, and we have individual house, triples, quadruples, all the way through. And that area of that jail builds and builds and builds out. And that's the last thing the community seems to want when it comes to that. Functional space.
Okay, what you're talking about is instead of having a 24 block cell, you have a 15 or a 12 or whatever. That's possible. That's what we're going to have to do. We had to come up with some template here to run this exercise, and this is a pretty typical. The average block size is 24. That came from DLZ. That said it's very common to have a 24 block. I've seen them up to 50. I've seen them as low as 5.
And why is it 24? Because every 12 inmates you need bathroom facilities.
So you have for every 12 inmates, you have to have a shower,
running sink,
and
toilet,
and a sink,
and a seat to.
As dictated by Indiana jail standards, you have to provide so many facilities like bathrooms, showers, and toilets per people in your jail. So if you divide it up in a certain manner, this is the optimal way to do that. Our current facility has 32 people generally for these bigger blocks on general housing populations.
So
it can fluctuate and you can make it bigger or smaller.
So if let's say you built a 15, you're still going to have those facilities in there because you go up to 3. So what you're losing there, you still have to have the same amount of showers and plumbing, and you're putting 15 people in there as opposed to being able to put 24 people. So you're limiting yourself. You can never put more than 12 people in that 15 bed block if you build a 15 bed block. Does that make sense to you?
This month.
So, the dorm with, dorm 2 with beds, for detox female 7, allowed,
Yes.
and there's nobody in there.
Oh,
Does it have to have toilet, sink?
Yes, it has to have facilities.
Every single person has to have access.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, see,
But nobody's in there, but the facility itself is so equipped.
yes,
Right? Okay.
yes.
Just,
Now,
those are pretty volatile because those are the people, when you come in, you may have no one in there for a few hours, and then in 3 hours, you may have 6 people in there.
I heard that.
real quick, I know, I'm funny. Real quick, the gentleman with the sex offense, maximum classification, continuous foot issue, medical history, where are we putting him in here?
what?
Where are we gonna house that individual? I can't give you that answer, Jail Commander, that's you.
We're assuming that he's coming in right now. You've already got everybody housed. He's coming in right now.
And
Go back to that real quick.
put him in that medical opening.
I would
Right?
think
The guy with the foot issue, you put him in one of the medical openings.
Yep.
And I'll go to down next. Where do we house her?
That one open.
Was a max. We had another
Yeah.
max, but it'd be a separate.
I think we're gonna get that in a second. You could.
But you've got a block with 24 cells and 2 female max who can be separated into 2 different cells within the block.
Time.
These are things you have to think about, right? Because what's actually happening with that person is they can't be housed individually. Why would we? We're gonna house that person individually because of their sex or because of their potential for violence. We have to take into consideration, right? We build everything off that classification. Let's go to the next one. Classification, or simulation, sorry. Is that the one?
Yep. You want to just keep those or change it? You want to keep those or change it?
All right, let's house them. Sheriff?
We're not doing another sheriff? We're gonna stick with the same
there's
3?
you.
No, I
Oh, I didn't know if my term ended or not.
Still go.
Oh, the voters
You wanna-
chose me again?
You can switch around if you
Oh, my
want.
goodness.
Your term limited.
Oh, this is my last term. Okay.
It's just the second day.
All right, so I like what we did last time where we started with, thank you. Finally, the resources I've been asking the council for.
Oh, my. I am not gonna allow you to speak negatively of good council name.
All right, I like starting with, I think that worked out nicely down here. What do you think? What do y'all think?
All right.
You need to make recommendations to the sheriff.
Yeah, I would start with, oh, wow. The medical and mental health is where we started last time, right?
Okay. So 10 medical, 17 mental health.
Yeah.
So start with mental health. Can you populate the 17? Thank you. And we have 0 females
Yeah.
for.
And so 10 male medical.
Okay, so
Oh,
where you want that in a cell block or down
only 8.
8? What do you think?
Focused on that juvenile right now.
You definitely, you gotta get in it.
I'm focused on that juvenile right now.
That's where my eyes always go.
I say go and do the detox because we do a detox. So get those in there. Let's get that number taken
So
care
we've got
Just
19.
keep in mind,
Now,
guys,
the issue is
real quick,
that-
this juvenile
Yeah.
has to be void of any sight and sound of an
of
adult
the general
detention
pop,
center.
right? Of
right?
The general pop at all.
They cannot be in close proximity.
Well,
to other people.
I would have assumed we would have some juveniles holding cells
We do
in our
not.
new facility.
Maybe, hopefully,
I mean,
that's up to you guys.
Yeah. Now, my question is, if you have a detox unit that has 2 dorms, and similarly with mental health, where you have dorms, but you have no females at the moment, couldn't you then repurpose
You
the
can change it.
female
You can
for
change it
males?
right now.
Yeah, and
Yep.
then, right, so split the detoxes up between, half and half,
Yeah.
whatever.
Sometimes even the current facility, what it is now, may
Yeah.
not be the same.
Yeah.
It just
Right.
depends on what we
Right.
have.
So, and I would do the same with the mental health. I would take this 17 and split them 8 and 9, make them all male.
Yeah, because we need 7 on this in this dorm right here, and then the remainder is got it. And then, so the detox is done, mental health is done. What next, jail commander?
Where would you put a juvenile male in this facility so that they are absolutely not, because even if you have single padded cells, you certainly can't put them in a block. You certainly can't put them in, I don't know. I don't know where
So,
Do
so
we know
for
anything
time's
else?
sake, you're going through exactly what we hoped you would. You completely understand what we're looking at. So just put them, take one of those single cells for now. We'll just fit them in here so we don't spend too much time on it. But that is a real concern when you're limited by your functional space.
Yeah, and putting a juvenile in a padded cell is a really horrible thing to do.
That's not, just so everybody's clear, we wouldn't
I'm
really do
just
that.
saying that.
You could put them in.
Neither would they. Huh?
Could you put them in a medical?
Right, yeah.
You can make any one of these the juvenile. That was just a day in our population that we had a juvenile in our facility. That's all that's meant to show you is how quick things could change everything.
How long do we hold a juvenile before can we hold a juvenile before they're moved out? Is it 48 hours?
It just depends. So they have 48 hours for a judge to make a decision on it.
Okay.
And then that can be continued as deemed necessary. But yes, we're completely at the courts.
We have nothing.
Yeah.
I get
We
that.
just have to properly house them. That's it.
And no pressure, but we do have some judges watching us while we're doing this, so that's terrifying.
It is terrifying.
Can we put the protective custody individuals in the protective custody? Thank you. And then sex offender individuals in a cell block, please. And then disciplinary down here in disciplinary, please.
When we get into yellow, orange, and red, we are operating above functional capacity.
And then let's slot.
Yellow's okay, right? Because it's 50%.
Yep, we're 50% full. 51 is bad, 49 is good.
All these medical, do we put some down in here and then create another cell block? Or do we put all the medical up in the cell block?
I mean, it depends on what kind of treatment they need, and
It does. All right.
I would split it between the
There's
single
one-
medicals and then a
And then
cell
there's
block.
one max female that might need separation.
Yeah.
So can you populate one of the single medicals with the max female, please? And then the remainder of the medical with these 10 individuals?
How do you think it's going to look to that person's family now, just because of their classification? They are completely isolated from everything.
But they're in medical.
Because they need access to current events, they need access to their
Why
attorneys.
are they not getting access to that just because they're in medical?
Because if they're in a single medical cell, they're there because they cannot be anywhere else. They need our help.
I think maybe we haven't explained it well enough. These are individual rooms with direct camera observation for medical purposes. If you want to, you can designate one of these dorms as a medical dorm. I think we touched on that a bit
But then if
earlier.
you have an individual with mental health diagnosis come into the jail who is a female, then you're up a crick again.
You just have to figure it out. It fluctuates.
Okay.
Anything
That's
in
the
the
point of
red
this
means
entire
you're gonna
simulation.
have to adjust something and then you're.
Yeah. Okay.
So do you want to redesignate this dorm for mental health for those 3 individuals, or do you?
Medical?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Medical, and then this is a 3, I believe. Yes, 3. There's 3 medical. I'm going fast because of time.
I appreciate that.
All right. Let's do this big minimum male, and let's start just filling it in. Again, the language is so non-person based.
Yeah.
I would hope that people understand that this is a simulation.
On a spreadsheet that's
Yeah.
not real people.
Yep.
So we're down to 42 remaining. We're down to 18 remaining. Keep going. So that last one's 18. Thank you. Then we've got our minimum females of 46.
Which I would split half and half between 2 blocks.
You're still not gonna come up anywhere near.
No. And then let's start on our medium males,
Yeah.
What?
which I think
I see where you're going with the split half and half.
just keep filling it
Yeah,
in.
It doesn't matter for this, but
Yeah,
There's
yes,
another medium
that's,
male
we
right
do
there.
that, yes.
Put 9 in the next one
I'm glad you caught that.
because I feel like the more we fill this in, the more it's making the point that we're trying to make here. Then the next one is max male. Or we can do no, actually let's do medium female. Let's female, and then that's 4. And so now we've got 41 people left.
Well, already we're starting with the problem that we have 335 population in 400 bed facility. That's the problem that we're starting with. That number is the issue.
That's the key to the whole thing.
And when
And
was,
I would be calling the judges, hey.
We're not done yet.
And that was a day of population in your current facility. We did not make this up.
when was it?
That was about
Oh,
6 weeks ago.
This one is
Oh, no,
2018.
That one's
it's
2018.
2018.
Yes.
2018.
Yeah, this one.
Before the.
We're going to do the
It was
highest
2
day of
years
our
after
population.
pre-trial started.
Oh, cool. You get the
Let's give that to a new sheriff and
Go
chief
to the
deputy
current
and
217.
jail commander. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
term limited. I can't do 3 terms.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we heard a volunteer over there.
All right.
So all we're trying to demonstrate here is that's a population that has been seen here, has been seen for some time. But what we're trying to say is that anytime you get above your functional jail capacity, and you saw how quickly that went south on you. And we've shown on that scatter chart that it does happen. If you're limited to that space, all your programming is out the window. All of the extra space that we're talking about to humanely house and provide programming is out the window when you get to that kind of a population. It just does. Even if it's for one day.
Let's fly through this one.
Yes.
This is a 294 bed facility. This is our current facility. These numbers are from this year data.
272.
Yes.
January.
That's from January.
Yep.
All right, so
We lived through this day.
let's start with ART 17.
And guys, keep in mind, it's not just one day.
Male detox.
It doesn't just all of a sudden, it's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. It's changed throughout. That's where functional capacity comes in.
Just fill, yeah, we're going to be filling all 3 cells. We have 9 more to go. Yep, 8 and.
Do the sex offender now, because that's a given.
So
This is our current dorm build, by the way, our facility build. It's not
Sex
the
offender.
DLZ recommendation.
male is 11.
So is that typical that you would have that many detox males and no females, or is that just for?
It just depends. Yeah, it depends if it's Friday, Saturday, Wednesday.
It's not
Statistically speaking, more males get arrested in our facility.
Can we fill in the trustees with 18, please? Or
It's not
is it 19?
untypical.
Or what is it, 18?
It's
Yeah.
not untypical to have that many.
Thank you.
I think right now, we have 4, 3.
Can we go up
Women in
top
detox.
and do minimum male and just fill out till we get to 68? Five more.
Realistically, though, I would look for 5 minimum and call the judges.
Now, that is a possibility, but let me point out with this one, we have almost as many max as we do as minimum. So that the courts are doing a great job keeping people out that don't need to be there. Some people just can't be released.
But let me address what you're saying. I'm not going to let you get by with that. You can call the judges. They're still there. You still have to house them. You have to house them for an hour. You have to house them for 2 days. You have to house them for 3 days. You still have to house them. So calling the judge is not the answer.
Can we do minimum female, please? There's 16 individuals.
They won't help.
Whoops.
Especially
There
if
you
they
go.
to the hospital. hospital or.
Then let's do our medium males.
Do not let that person out. I'm like, oh
There's
my God,
19.
okay.
Medium females, there's 4. And then max male, there's 56. Geez.
We still have 31 mental health.
Why not put the 4 females in the block?
Oh, and then K block is for currently K block is designated for those that need pretty serious classification, right?
Yeah, mental health usually.
Mental health.
We're gonna now make that J block. Because there's 31 mental health now.
Or there's 4 female who have a mental health diagnosis.
Yeah, so put 4 females in that K block, and then in J, put the 31 male mental health, right? Yes.
Yes. All right, and then let's do I and J. Get as many. Let's do 1 max male and another max female.
Wait, that was.
Because those are the only 2 16 cell blocks available.
We'll stop here.
Yeah.
Here's the point.
How long are those people?
You're not going to put these people in. I couldn't put these people in.
What'd you do?
What we had to do is I had to add, or day 1, I combined minimum medium right away into 1 block. So, A block is a minimum medium dorm for men. B block is the same. C block is our maximum security inmates. D block is maximum security overflow, as well as protected custody, disciplinary classification. We have E block is our women's facility, our block. F block is our women's maximum classification. And we start changing it up. At no time do I put max in with other people. I would work very hard to make sure we don't do that. The only time that we do sometimes is if it's a max classification because 20 years ago you had a bad charge, you've not had that charge in 20 years, and I will work on making you an inmate worker because you have the certifications and you're going into serve safe and you have a job already, somebody's already called it when you get out. I'll work on helping that person, but we never just put max in willy-nilly with whoever else, okay? But more important than anything is this. Our facility is not built for our needs today. We all know that. But every single day that I have minimum and medium classifications pushed together and mental health classifications pushed together, and I had to throw somebody in a single cell and move somebody out of that to put another person in, we are juggling liability on our end. And it is incredibly difficult to do on a continued basis because it is impossible to manage that for a long time. So here's what we've done to mitigate that a little bit, and then Chief Deputy will get into the explanation behind it. We come in and we develop, the Assistant Jail Commander, develop incentive-based programs for our mental health. We have a clean cell contest. We've spoke to you guys about some of these things. Our mental health dorm, J, is now the best dorm in our facility, and it was by far the worst. And not just in our facility, but every facility. Our social workers, our teams, when we have the space available to us, they have executed, and they have done an incredible job because that was the worst and most violent block in our facility. So what we're talking about here isn't just functional capacity. It's a need to move into that functional capacity yesterday.
The whole idea of this one is to show us that we've got to move. This happened this year. It didn't happen for long, granted, but it was over a weekend, and the judges they went right to work. We had them out of there in no time. But the whole point is if it happens, you've got to deal with it for the hour, the 2 hours, the day, the 3 days, or the 4 days that they're there. It doesn't make it any different. It doesn't make any difference if it was only for a day or two. It's just as much of a problem for one day as it is for a week. So that whole exercise was to get us to understand that this jail, when we get those types of populations, it's absolutely unmanageable. And we've got people, with boats on floors and all kinds of things that nobody wants to do. All right, on to the next one here. And the sheriff and I are going to kind of work through this one. The whole time, the whole part of this exercise was just what I said. We've got to act. We've been here a year and 7 months now, and we're still talking about this. And if we don't get moving, it's only going to get worse. And we're going to talk about a lot of different things about why the time to act is now. And I think we all know that, but we're going to emphasize it a little bit here. I think our commissioners can probably recognize this very, very handily, that we have had issues with this. These things here, and I talked to Dave about this, and the issue we're facing here is any one of these things, if when they go, we have a catastrophic failure in this facility, we are facing a situation where we're going to have to figure out how we're going to house inmates in other facilities across this state. And any one of them could go at any time. These sewer lines, we've already had some of them break, the boilers and chillers. And when something like this goes down, it's not days, it's not hours, you're talking about weeks to fix some of these things, if they can be fixed at all. So all of these things are well beyond their life period. So every day we're waiting for one of these things to go down and affect us catastrophically.
Now, the elevator for me, every time that goes down, we're talking about people, medical care, feeding people, programs, all that shuts down because of that particular elevator. So when we talk about a new facility, and you hear me say, think about not having another elevator, because people, I hear people talking about, well, let's just put the jail on the bottom and then build on top. No, we created the same situation we already have now. So when I say the essence of the time for us is we don't have the time anymore, we just don't. That's going to shut down eventually, and we won't be able to fix it. And it's very urgent that we move forward.
Good. We're all aware of this. The more we wait, the higher the cost. The inability to provide what we need there, the continuation of the lawsuit, it's going to continue until we have a new jail. We just saw that quote in there. And the safety and the individuals of the staff are at risk. They just are.
Now, when Ken Falk, that's the attorney, when he took the tour of the jail recently, you could tell that we on borrowed times because of the way it looks now. It's clean, but we don't have the space. That was the big issue, the lack of space. So right now, we don't know if we don't move forward what's going to happen. We really don't want, and you know this already. If someone else comes in, the bed size is going to be more than what we're thinking of. This happened outside the facility, but this is a guy that did this to one of our corrections officers. This guy is housed in our facility. He's in there quite frequently, and it just shows you the violence that these guys are exposed to. So the person that caused this is in there right now.
He is.
Everything's good now. From the point that we leave here and walk back, we don't know what that individual is going to do in that facility. And if he harms someone else, now we got to shut down that block and move him where? Yeah, because now we got to care for him, and we got to worry about retaliation.
Yeah, he's very difficult for us to deal with right now because we have limited space to put someone who's prone to this kind of violence. But this one here, I think it's real striking for us because building a jail, no one's going to come along and say, hey, you built a great jail 30 years from now. They're going to come by and say, if we don't do it right, they're going to be saying, you guys screwed this up royally. So when we do this design, all of these things that we talked about here, we need to really concentrate on what we want in this community and what this jail needs to be, and so that we are able to operate at a functional jail capacity, not a jail bed, not a facility capacity, a functional bed capacity. We have to operate at or below that at all times. This is just just more of what Ken Falk said when he was down here. And what we're coming to you from, our mandate's to build a jail, nothing more, nothing less. And I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit more. But this is what we need to be concentrating on right here. We've had, this is the slide I was going to talk about. And we've had all these wishful discussions about what we're going to do in this Justice Center. And I remember having conversations about adding all these things. And if we can, fantastic. But what we can't do is depart from what our mission is here and start worrying about the things that we want to add as opposed to what we have to have. So, you know, an on-site cafeteria and daycare facilities, that's all wonderful, but we can't sacrifice the jail for the wants. We have to have a jail that fits the needs. And this is what we're talking about. The Sheriff and I have talked about this many times. We can't sacrifice a single square foot of that jail to accommodate something that we want to have. We've got to build the jail that we need that provides this programming, provides the safe space for the residents there, a safe place for our staff to work. So if we have to strike a balance, and it requires us to forfeit any of the operational capabilities, we're going down the wrong road. The jail has to be first. Now here's what I would tell you. The court co-location is something I hope we consider very, very, very seriously, because these two things are very true. There are safety issues, serious safety issues that come about when we start transporting individuals from the jail to the courts. And then there's long-term financial consequences to that. And I know we've got to strike that balance, but those two things, you know, I had one term that I was calling it pie in the sky stuff here. This is not. This, I believe, is something that if we don't do or we don't seriously consider, the folks that are come in behind us are going to pay a very heavy price for this if we don't consider it. I've been around some folks that have been involved in these types of processes. And what has come out of it is there's a lot of battles back and forth about what we need, what we should have, and all those types of things. But we wanted to point out who we're building the jail for. We're building for the community, the residents of the jail, the families of those residents, the citizens of this county, and so we can provide the essential services in there and our staff in the jail. That's who we're building the jail for. We're not building it for us because if you look around the room, there's a good chance that a fair amount of us in this room won't be around for very long after this new jail becomes operational. Yes. You know, if we start slinging dirt today, I'd say we're 5 years away. Well, we're a year and a half into our first term. If we get a second term, we're 6 years, so we're 2 years and we're gone. That applies to everybody in this room. So we need to be thinking about the future, who we're building this jail for, not us. These things always turn into a political football, a hot potato. We just went through this chicken the egg thing here of can't have a bed count without a budget, can't have a budget without a bed count. And we started playing tag out on who decides the bed count. It's all of us. We're going to have to come to a consensus about what this is going to be. And I hope that this process here helps us figure some of this stuff out. We saw how difficult it was on paper to staff a jail, a 400-bed jail. We wanted to do the 272, the population we had this year in the 400-bed jail. We just knew we were going to run out of time. And you would have found that very difficult to staff that facility.
And really quick, we're going to have to get to the crossroad. We are not going to please everybody. We're just not. We're going to have to just dig in and this is what we're going to do, and explain why, with the understanding we're not going to please everybody. We just can't, it's human impossible. But every time we delay, we just showed you specifically what we deal with every single day. That's not including when we lose power. We didn't touch on that. That's not including when we have something that we have not even thought of. For example, a gas leak. We didn't talk about that. Or when we have a fluctuation of people coming into town, and God forbid something happens, and now they get arrested, where we can't say, we can't take you, we got to take them. And then it becomes inhumane. We got to think about those things, and we got to think about it quickly.
There's not one person in that facility right now, or their families, that cares about this. They don't care about it. They just don't. Nor should we. Go ahead. Here's what we need to really, really consider. We can't have this humane jail that we've all been aspiring to and talking about if we don't have the space to properly classify these residents. We went through that exercise. You kind of saw it firsthand. It's not perfect because there are all kinds of little intricacies that go into it. We know that. But the whole thing was designed to get us thinking. And whether we want to hear it or not, we better plan for growth. We put that slide up there about our population and how it coincided exactly. The jail population coincided exactly with the growth of this county. And we better, I've said this over and over again, if we don't learn something from COVID, then shame on us. We better have some facilities standing by so when we have to quarantine people, we are not putting sick people that are with well people and well people that are with sick people. We have to be able to quarantine those people off, and that requires space to do it. So it's simple as this to us. Filter out the noise. We know what the noise is. We've got a job to do. We got to determine a location, a budget, build that design based on our obligations and build to the budget. And then I hope we all listen to each other because we all know what we're doing here. We've just got to get on the same page here and start doing it. But we have, I don't think any of us sitting in this room now would figure that when we started having the JFAC meetings and you know, all of those different meetings that we had, the CGRC meetings, that in July, a year and a half later, we'd be sitting here kind of stuck in the mud. So it's time for us to really start making some decisions, because I'll go back to that slide. We're operating in areas where the jail commander and these gentlemen here are every day trying to figure out how we're gonna safely house the individuals that we have in that facility. Sheriff?
Now, this concludes it, which we really cut out a lot. Please take this to heart. We got to move. We cannot do any more than we're doing right now. We just can't. Our hands at this point are at the maximum level of we can't do any more than we can right now. We need the council, we need the commissioners to act, because we can't move without you. It's just the way it is. So clearer than that, I don't know what else we could do. I have been in meetings where I've listened, I've purposely stood quiet and listened to council commissioners discuss certain things, and I paid attention. I didn't say too much. We are at a certain point that if we do not move, we're going to pay the heavy price down the road. And I want to make sure that you heard from me, in case people say, well, where's the sheriff standing? I just showed it to you. Not only did I show it to you, I gave you examples, because it is not fair to you that if you don't do this every day, you won't know, but we do. So it comes a point you're going to have to trust when we say to you, we know what we're talking about, we have the experience, and we live this every day. We can't improve more than what we're doing right now. This is as far as we can go than what we have at the present time. And what worries me at night is, God forbid, someone in that jail, a staff member, is killed or an inmate is killed. That worries me, because the potential is there. When you have overcrowding and you have no space, temper flare up. And when we have to lock somebody down, it's because we have to lock somebody down. We don't want it. The community might not understand why we do what we do, but it's for safety reasons. So I implore you, please, please, please act now, because there's nothing else we could do. The staff at this point is at the maximum of what they're doing right now, and they're tired. They're tired. Any questions of me? If you have no questions, we're done. We're concluded. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the
very much.
information.
You're welcome.
Adjourned.
We are adjourned.
We're adjourned.